The point is, we get out of our comfort zone, we rapidly move through our fear zone, we get into that new learning zone, into that growth zone, and then you're off to the races.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Kris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Kris Toribio here at the Freedom Investing Podcast, and I'm so happy you're here to join us for another amazing episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Moving on to today's guest, we have Carl Moos. Carl Moos has been in the multifamily real estate space for nearly 30 years. As a banker, a broker, an investor, and a property manager, he knows full well what stops most investors from reaching their full potential. In addition to real estate, Carl is a Napoleon Hill Foundation member and certified Think and Grow Rich trainer. His passion for both real estate and the Think and Grow Rich material led to the writing of his latest book, Unstoppable You, Move Beyond Your Limits. Carl, welcome to the show, man.
How are you?
Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, your background, and where you are in your journey to achieving time freedom.
Yeah, I'm your biggest fan, Kris. I don't know. Seriously, thanks for being here. And it was so great to see you guys at your event. Last week. You guys did a bang up job. I mean, that was really awesome. So I was just fortunate to be there. Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Carl Gordon Moos. I'm a real estate guy. I'm a multifamily all my life. Used to be a banker. I saw a lot of people earning a lot of money and building wealth through multifamily. So I finally jumped in. I bought an 18-unit building, and then we were off to the races. We ended up buying about 22 buildings over the course of about 7 or 8 years, and then kind of retired a little bit. Took a big hit in 2008. Had some partners that passed away, unfortunately, and some others that went bankrupt. So, but all the time, as you know, I was involved with the Napoleon Hill Foundation for a couple decades. And so just studying that material and now being certified and being a member to go out and train people on the material as well. So that's my real passion.
Holy cow. So kind of unpack that a little bit. So you started out as a banker. You saw a lot of people making a ton of money in the industry, transitioned to real estate. You purchased an 18-unit, then a 20-unit, got hit in 2008. But in the meantime, you were still part of this Napoleon Hill Foundation. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with Napoleon Hill, can you kind of just touch high level on who that is and what it is that they do?
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head. I was a banker watching all these other people, earn good living, passive income, retiring from their jobs, and bought a building. Then we ended up buying 22 buildings. So, not only
22 buildings.
22 buildings, right? So, but the whole time it was my success was founded in the principles of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill was a gentleman that was born in the late 1800s into poverty, generational poverty in Virginia. And it wasn't until his mother passed away that his father remarried and married a school teacher who brought education into his household when he was a young man, 8 or 9 years old. And to make a long story short, he went on to be a writer. He wanted to be an attorney, and he was working for a magazine. And the editor said he wanted a article once a month on a successful person to talk about principles of success. Well, Napoleon Hill's first interviewee was Andrew Carnegie, when Andrew Carnegie was one of the wealthiest men in North America between him and John D. Rockefeller. So make a long story short, Andrew Carnegie introduced him to everybody and anybody that was successful, and he took 20 years of his life. Napoleon Hill took 20 years of his life interviewing all these people and asking them the same question: what made you successful? And they kept giving the same or similar answers, and that's where the book was written. And then it was published in originally in 1927, and has been a very popular book ever since. So Napoleon Hill passed away in the 70s. We're keeping his legacy alive with the foundation, and the principles are universal. They really work whether it's in real estate, Kris, or in your relationships, your health, your wellness, your finances, whatever. This is the foundation of success.
Absolutely. And, I myself has also hired a mindset coach in the past too. And I do believe that you can have strategy, but regardless of what strategy that is, and no matter how clear that strategy may be, if your mindset isn't in alignment with that strategy, then you're going to meet a lot of resistance when it comes to taking action. And I can speak firsthand to your ability to teach others. It's been fantastic. For those who don't know, Carl was also a speaker at our Windy City REI monthly meetup not too long ago, and he really did a bang up job. And we knew we had to have him in on this podcast.
Well, I appreciate that, Kris.
So back to your real estate acquisitions. Now, you were already affiliated with the Napoleon Hill Foundation when you jumped into the real estate industry, and you went straight for an 18 unit, right? And then from there, you just scaled up to 22 properties. That's not the typical trajectory for people going into the real estate space. Like, do you think the Napoleon Hill Foundation had anything to do with that?
Well, it had a ton to do with it. I mean, at the time, I was sitting on this. I was operating out of fear. I was in my comfort zone. I was working at the bank. I was earning a nice living. I was watching all these other people, closing deals and refinancing and putting money in their pocket. And I was operating in my comfort zone. I was operating out of fear. At the time, I was being coached by a gentleman named Bob Proctor, which I know you're familiar with that name. Your listeners may or may not be. He just recently passed away at 87, but he was a good friend and a mentor, a coach, trainer of mine. And at the time, he was sick and tired of me listening to me talk about other people and not getting into action. So he finally said, if you want to buy a property, what's the first thing somebody does? I said, they put a contract on it. He said, well, go put a contract on it. So he really kicked my rear end, got me out of my comfort zone, moved me beyond my fears to go in and buy that property. And, I think I told the story when I was speaking. I didn't have the down payment at the time. This was an 18 unit building. I think we bought it for, gosh, I want to say 1.8 back then. So we needed we needed $200,000-300,000. I didn't have it laying around. And so I went to Bob. I said, but Bob, I don't have the money. He says, well, how much do you need? I said, about 300,000. He said, you'll find it. And I said, well, where? He goes, I don't know, wherever it is now. He said, I don't know where it is, but it'll come to you. And the truth of the matter is, when I took on that mindset, Kris, when I got into action, I wrote the contract, I didn't operate out of fear, and I started telling people at a networking event, very much similar to the networking events that you put on, about what I was doing. And I was standing there talking to a gentleman I had never met before, and he was listening to my story. I had this property under contract. I needed the money. I was looking for investors. He said, oh, my friend is a lawyer, and he and his lawyer friends invest in property all the time. He said, it sounds like it's perfect for them. Well, I said, hey, could you please give him my card? And he said, give him your card. He said, the guy's standing right over there. He literally walked me over to Paul. His name was Paul, and introduced me. A week later, I had the money. That would have never happened. It would have never happened if Bob Proctor wasn't coaching me, and it would have never happened if Bob didn't knock me out of my comfort zone. I would have sat on the sidelines for another 2 or 3 years, probably, if not longer.
That is fascinating, and it goes hand in hand with what a lot of people kind of advise is to let everybody know what it is that you're doing. You can go about doing it without coming off as bragging, and ultimately, you're really providing other people an opportunity. Many times, you don't even know who it's going to be, and lo and behold, when you told this person who attended the meetup alongside yourself, he referred you to someone, and you got the deal done. That's great.
And Kris, I don't even remember that individual's name. I remember his face, but he literally walked me over to Paul, and within a week, Paul and his partners, they ended up buying 3 more buildings with us too. So they became good partners. It would have never happened. A, if I didn't get out of my condominium and go to the networking event. B, when I got there, just get out of my own fear of being judged or criticized, because I didn't own any property. This was a room full of property owners, right, and investors. And if I didn't just tell my story, just authentically, right, and that's such a key thing. And I tell people all the time, I said, listen, go to Windy City REIA. You're going to meet people there. We all started in the same place. Don't be intimidated, right? Go there. Tell people what you're up to, because you may not have the money, but you may have the property, right? Or maybe you do have a 401k, or you have some money to invest, but you don't know how to manage a property or find a property. You're going to find the people at these events, like the event that you just put on out in Rosemont. Where else are you going to find them? If you're sitting in your condominium watching reruns of The Office or Friends, that's not going to advance your career. Get out there 2 or 3 times a week, join a group like the one that you have, or and meet people, because that's even, listen, I've been doing this for a long time. I met probably 10 people at your event that we're going to stay in touch with and probably do something. And I've been doing this for a long time, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are, because what's the old saying? Wherever you are, it's like a plant. Wherever you are, bloom wherever you are. It doesn't matter what you have or what you don't have. Get out there and tell people and network and become part of organizations, because it's going to be beneficial to you.
Absolutely. And they always say, that your network is your net worth. And, just very proud of the conference. For those who don't know, we hosted a nationwide conference full of commercial real estate investors this past week. We're talking right now, this is the second week of July. But last year, we hosted an impromptu conference as our first rendition of it. And about 75 to 100 people showed up. Typically, there's around 30 people that show up to our monthly meetup, but we managed to get over 350 attendees at this 2-day conference that we hosted. And it kind of just goes to show from there, you provide networking experiences for others. Ultimately, if you give, all of that comes back to you. And it's something that we've experienced just very briefly over these past 2 years.
Kris, I gotta be honest with you. I go to probably an event like that every month or 6 weeks, either to speak or attend or whatever. You guys did a bang up job. You guys really did. I mean, I've been to a lot of events. If you didn't tell me this was your first or second event, I would have guessed you've been doing it for 10, 15 years. And I'm not just saying that. You had a great team of people, right? Which is the power of the mastermind, right? You brought in that event planner, right? Used her specialized knowledge, right? These are all the principles of success. Those are the names of the chapters of the book. The mastermind, right? Specialized knowledge, right? Getting beyond your fears. These are the principles that people, whether you know how to name them or not, or articulate them the way I can, because I've been trained in it. You exercise these, right? That's why that event was so successful. You didn't try to do it all on your own. You put a team together, right? Your mastermind. You found the event planner who has specialized knowledge. She has knowledge about that. I'm telling you right now, I was very blown away. I mean, not surprised, because the events that you put together are very well put together, but I was surprised when you told me that was the first crack at it. I was like, I thought that was like number 10 or 12. No, you guys really did a great job.
Well, I appreciate that, Carl. Thanks so much. So, what I really want to share with our listeners is the amazing stuff that you've provided when it came to your presentation over at our meetup, right? So, you touched base on your book, The Unstoppable You, and there's multiple chapters that are in there. One of the chapters that really stuck out to me was getting through that comfort zone into the fear zone, and then progressing from there. Can you kind of just go over high level what is that about?
Sure. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I have a copy of it right here. If any of your listeners want to get a copy of it, just tell them to email me. I'd be more than happy to send them a copy. I don't really sell the book. It's more of a giveaway, just because it's just a really good piece of work that I'm proud of. So yeah, the first chapter is called Fears, right? Fears, and the book is called Unstoppable You: Move Beyond Your Limits, right? And the reason why I put fears first and foremost is because they're most deeply rooted in our psyche, right? And they're the things that stop us all. I don't care who you are. Fear is one of the things that stops you, right? And so we address it right in the beginning of the book. There's basically 7 human fears, and you experience them at different times of your life, right? And so we don't have to go into great depth on that, because I could talk about that for a couple hours. But think of it this way: your comfort zone is really not. It may be where you're comfortable, but it's not where you're going to be fully expressed. It's not where you're going to be most successful, right? It's not where your purpose is going to come out. It's where you feel good, right? However, what's right beyond their comfort zone is what's called your fear zone, right? And when you understand that, and you understand how the fears manifest and where they come from, and how you can get beyond them, because you never get rid of them. I love it when people say I'm fearless. They're just not being accurate. We all have fears. Some people just know how to move beyond them and move through them faster than others, because you've worked at it, right? And so once you get out of your comfort zone, it's that fear zone that pushes you back in your comfort zone. So when you realize that, and you know how to deal with that, you can push right through that fear zone, right? And what's beyond the fear zone is your learning zone, right? That's where you're inspired by others. That's where you're inspired to be and do everything you can do, right? And once you get through the learning zone, the next zone is your growth zone, right? And that's where you get to influence and inspire others, right? That's where you and your team is with regard to things that you're doing with the podcast. Listen, it wasn't that long ago where you didn't know how to run a podcast, but look at you now, right? You got out of your comfort zone. You moved beyond the fear of criticism, the fear of judgment, right? You learned how to do it. That was your learning zone. Now you're in the growth zone, right? Where you're not only inspired yourself, but you're inspiring other people, right? And so we all go through that. And this podcast is a perfect example of that, right? Comfort zone is do nothing, right? You think about doing it, but you don't do it. You face your fears, you move through them, right? You learn how to do it, then you grow, and then what happens? You end up in a new comfort zone. Because it's an endless cycle. right? You end up in a new comfort zone, and you have a choice then. You can either choose to stay back in that limited new comfort zone or push through your fears again. But here's the kicker: the more times you push through your fears, because your fears are your fears, they're the same ones that come up every single time. I have mine and you have yours. The more you push through that fear zone, the thinner and thinner it gets, because you just know what's coming. And you just say, what am I afraid of? Why am I afraid to get up and speak in front of people, right? It's fear of judgment, fear of criticism, right? But once you do it enough times, it doesn't even matter, right? I mean, and just have a conversation with an old person. They say stuff that you can't even believe they say, because you know why? They're beyond criticism. They don't even care what people think, right? I mean, my mom's 93 years old. Sometimes she says things, we go, geez, mom, did you just say that? My mom doesn't care anymore. You know, when she was in her 30s and 40s, she probably wouldn't say some of the things she was saying. The point is, we get out of our comfort zone. We rapidly move through our fear zone. We get into that new learning zone, into that growth zone, and then you're off to the races. So that's really what that first chapter is all about.
That is so powerful. And I remember you saying that live, and we were looking at ourselves amongst their team over here at freedominvesting.com, and we're like, this resonates so much with us because we always say that we have to get used to being comfortable, feeling uncomfortable. And as you were saying, eventually you get to a point where you develop a new comfort zone once you're able to push past that fear and you go through the learning stage. And ultimately, what we were saying is, you get desensitized to that level of discomfort. And the more you get desensitized to that level of discomfort, the easier it is to push past that fear in the future. It's
You know,
awesome.
100%. And it's the habit, right? It's the habit. You get in the habit of doing it, and it's no big deal. It's like, the guys that do the polar plunges, right? I know a friend of mine is a professional boxer. He jumps in the water every day, and and he sometimes, the first time I did with him, I was, it was unbelievable. My point is that you get used to that, right? It's like, you've heard the old story of putting a frog in a cold pot of water and turning up the heat, right? As opposed to dropping the frog in the boiling water. Well, you get used to it, right? And so that's what happens. You move beyond your fears because you just get comfortable with them, right? You go, I know it's coming. Listen, I read Tom Hanks' book. I'm a big Tom Hanks fan. He said he still gets butterflies. I mean, how many Oscars has that guy won? I mean, he's renowned. He says, I still get butterflies. That's his fear of criticism. The difference is he knows how to deal with it better now than he did 40 years ago because he's been through it so many times. It's exactly like you say, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because otherwise you're going to get comfortable being comfortable.
Right, right. And what do you think these fears kind of start from? Do you think it's from just someone's upbringing or their experiences? What do you think how do people develop these limiting beliefs in the first
Yeah,
place?
well, a lot of it, unfortunately, is what Bob Proctor used to call our paradigms, right? We inherit them. We inherit them from our parents, from our coaches, from our teachers, from our culture, our society, right? And that's the I guess that's the bad news. The good news is that we inherit them, and therefore we can change them. We don't have to, we all get to an age of reasoning. We all grow up at some time and say enough is enough. I mean, there's plenty of examples out there. Look at Oprah. I'm not a huge Oprah fan, but I respect her. Right? She came from a very not good environment. She said enough is enough, and look where she's gone. Right? And that's because she changed her mind. Right? She changed her mind. She said, I'm going to do something. I'm going to be something. I'm going to do something. I'm going to have something different. I mean, I go over where the fears come from. I mean, one of the biggest one is fear of criticism, fear of judgment. That's the same fear. Do you realize they've actually done studies, Kris? People are more afraid of being judged or criticized than they are of death. They've actually done studies. And here's in the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about that, and I talk about it in my book too. It's very deeply seated, because think about this for a moment. 10,000 years ago, we were living in caves. That's really not that long ago. It seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't, right? Even 5,000 years ago. If you were not accepted by your group and not let into the cave, you could literally starve or freeze to death or get eaten by wild animals. Think about that for a minute. So back then, that fear of judgment, fear of criticism was real, because if you literally were left out in the cold, you could die. Well, we don't live in caves anymore, right? We don't, that kind of pressure is no longer upon us. However, that fear is that deeply rooted. People are afraid of being judged or afraid of being criticized. And the root of it is it's back in our reptilian brain. It's not in our frontal lobe. It's in our very primitive brain, because it wasn't that long ago where if you were ostracized or kicked out of the group, you could literally die. That's not the case anymore. Getting up and speaking in front of people, you're not going to die. I mean, no one's going to, throw you in the dungeon. You know what I mean? But why are so many people afraid of public speaking? They're actually not afraid of public speaking. They're afraid of the fear of criticism or judgment. And when you get them beyond that, they can then stand up in front of people and speak.
Absolutely. That's a great point. On the first day of our conference, there was a few friends that we saw that were out in the among the attendees, and one of them came up to me. She's like, "How you doing? Are you ready for this?" And I was feeling butterflies and feeling a little bit nervous. I was like, "All right, we'll see how this goes." And there's a lot of people here compared to last time around. She's like, "Look, you have to realize these are your people. People want you to succeed. It goes completely against what your fears are. And more often than not, if you're going to be able to get in front of people who are in your network, a lot of people actually want you to succeed." And that actually helped, throughout that first day on to the next one as well.
Yeah, 100%. And when you take the spotlight off yourself, right, and you tell your ego to go sit down, and you realize that your message is way more powerful than your fear, because your fear is all in your head. We're afraid. Fears are a state of mind, Chris. We're afraid of something that hasn't happened yet, right? And it's really kind of silly if you think about it, because you're afraid of being criticized or judged, and that hasn't even happened yet. It's all in your mind. Fear is a state of mind. And the beautiful thing about it is that we have complete and total control over our minds. We can control that if you're aware of it.
So, for our listeners here who either want to jump into real estate investing, whether that be as an active investor or a passive investor, but either have fear of one, losing their money, or maybe not fully understanding what it is that they're getting into, or whatever limiting beliefs it may be, and it might not even have to be real estate investing. What would you say to them as a first step in towards getting started?
Yeah. So the three fears that come into play when you're talking about real estate or starting a business, which I do a lot of training in real estate companies or people that are starting their businesses or taking their business to the next level. The three fears are fear of judgment, fear of criticism, number one, fear of poverty or fear of success, which is the same fear, by the way. They're just pointed in different directions, right? Some people are actually afraid of success. And then the third one is afraid, what we call afraid of fear of loss of affinity or love. In other words, your friends are not going to be your friends anymore, or they're not going to come along with you, or they're not going to invest with you. So those are the three fears that are at play: criticism, judgment, poverty, success, losing friends or affinity. Those are the three fears. So once you understand the source of those for yourself, then you can start to get beyond that. The other thing is, which are also chapters in my book, the other things that stop us beyond fears is doubt. We doubt that we can do it. Confusion. We don't know what to do, right? Indecision, which is chapter 4. We just never make a decision, therefore we don't get into action. And worry. We're worried about something, which is nothing more than a lack of trust, right? So all those five things, which are the five chapters of my book, fear, doubt, confusion, indecision, and worry, are what's play here, right? So uh, um, let's take confusion for a minute, right? If someone's confused about what to do, they won't do anything, right? How do you get beyond that? I'll tell you how you get beyond that. Find somebody that's done what you want to do and mimic them, or have them mentor you, or hang around with them, or whatever. Because if they've done it, you can do it, right? If you're willing to do what's required to succeed, it's never a question of ability. And again, this came out of my working with Bob Proctor too. Bob said, what would be a good number for you in real estate? I just threw a number. I said 100 million. He said, okay, well, that's your goal for this year. I said, oh, Jesus, I can't believe I just said that, right? I couldn't even imagine it. Right. Well, he said to me, he said, Carl, is there anybody in Chicago that owns $100 million in real estate? I said, yeah, there's lots of people. He said, well, if they can do it, you can do it. I said, what are you talking about? He said, if they have the ability, so do you. The question is, are you willing? Right. And that was my doubt, my own self-doubt. Right. And he said, if you doubt yourself, find somebody that's done what you want to do. And then you can mimic them and just follow their footsteps, because success, like Mike Morawski says, will leave clues. So, the first thing is awareness. Once you're aware of what's at play here, the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of losing your friends, or they don't want to play along with you, you can deal with it. And then you can start to move beyond that, and seek out the people that are doing what you want to do. Because here, and especially Chris, this more than anybody in real estate, if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody ever asked me what college I went to when I was at a closing table. No one ever asked me. So, by the way, I got to ask you one more question before I sign the papers. What college did you go to? or
Right.
how tall are you, or how old are you, or what did your mom and dad do, or do you have a criminal record or not? They don't care, right? My point is anybody can perfect a real estate deal if they're willing to do what's required to do that, and that should be encouraging to everybody listening that's never done a deal, because I know you started with one property. I started with one property. Most of the people I know started with one property, and so that's how you get beyond it. Just being aware that it's just a state of mind. Your doubt, your confusion, your indecision, your worry, your fears, they're just a state of mind. The way to get over that is to be aware of it, and to hang out with people that are doing what you want to do.
Ooh, that was so good, Carl. That was
I mean,
awesome. And I want my listeners to take a step back, rewind at like 1 minute and re-listen to all of that stuff, because that is really powerful stuff if you are encountering a lot of resistance towards taking action towards your goals. So thank you, Carl, for sharing that with us. All right, folks. So we are coming towards the end of today's show, but before we finish, it is time for the Freedom Five. These are 5 questions that we ask every guest on our show, starting with the most important question: what is your why? What is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do?
so my purpose, I have 3 kids. They're teenagers. My purpose is, my statement of purpose is comfort, safety and security, comfort and pleasure for myself, my family, my friends, and my community. Right? Safety and security, comfort and pleasure. Everything I do moves me towards that. That's my purpose, and that's really why I do everything I do, regardless of what it is. Whether it's real estate, whether it's training, coaching, flipping burgers, it doesn't matter. My why is safety, security, comfort, and pleasure for myself, my family, my friends, and my community.
That's great. Number 2, what book has had the largest influence in your life?
Well, Think and Grow Rich is right up there. There's another one called Working with the Laws. There's another one called As a Man Thinketh. There's quite a few, but in the business world, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, another great book. I really have to point to Think and Grow Rich, though. That's my. I have the Bible, but that's my business Bible.
That's amazing. And there's a trend there, right? 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, Think and Grow Rich. A lot of these things make no mention of strategy, right? It's about habits that you develop. It's about how you shift your mind and the way and your thinking in order to get to where you want to
Yeah,
go,
but
which is
Chris,
great.
you made a good point earlier. Strategy. I have multiple coaches, right? I have multiple coaches. I have a business coach. I have a nutrition coach. Strategy is important. Mindset's important. They're both important. So most successful people have more than one coach. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep, absolutely. And myself included, I've had multiple coaches, in this short journey that we've had so far. And it really is important to make sure that not only is your mindset in alignment, but also and have a crystal clear vision of where you want to go. So that's very true. Um, and number 3, what would you say is the most impactful thing, whether that be a piece of technology or a habit or a person, that has helped when it comes to freeing up your time?
Freeing up my time. I would say the habits that I've created. Right, getting up early in the morning, going to bed early. Right. There's certain things I do during the day, pretty much every day, and if I don't do them, I feel out of place. Like making my bed. Just as a note, I came from a military background, and had the privilege of working with some Navy SEALs way back when, and one of them wrote a book called "Make Your Bed." I think it was called "Make Your Bed." Have you read
Yes.
that book?
I haven't read that book, but we follow that
Yeah,
concept as well.
and the whole idea is you wake up in the morning, you take care of it right then and there, and no matter what kind of day you have, when you come back, you've got a clean slate. You've got a nice place to lay down. I literally will not leave my condominium. There's days I've gone down to the street level and realized I didn't make my bed. I go back up and I make it because it does make a difference. And the other thing is I keep gratitude rocks. You'll always find if you ever meet me, I'll have 1 or 2 rocks in my hand, and they're my gratitude rocks. They just subconsciously they keep me grounded. That I'm always grateful for the things that I have.
Absolutely. That's really important too. I think there was a study that was done when people were trying to determine what makes people happy. What is a trend that is consistent among many people who exhibit high levels of happiness, and gratitude was the number one attribution there. And I think, if anything, regardless of how much you make, what it is that you do, what is you have going on in your life, if you have the ability to express gratitude in your life, I mean, that's really one of the main tickets to happiness right there.
And we all do, Kris. We all do.
Now, number 4, what is the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone else looking to achieve more control over their time?
I would say find a mentor. Find a mentor, whether that's somebody you pay or somebody that gets some other value out of mentoring you. None of us do it on our own. There's some people out there that would like to think their ego would like you to think that they get it there on their own, but they don't. I'd find somebody that's doing what you want to do, connect with them, and learn from them because you know, and if you have to pay them, whether it's financially or some other value that you bring. Bob used to say to me, Bob Proctor used to say, "What's your most valuable asset?" I think we all know that's time, right? Money comes and goes. He said, "So why are you wasting your time trying to save money, learning how to do something?" And I said, "You're right." So he said, "You're better off spending your money to save time." And if you think about it, and everybody should do this calculation, what are you worth? It's real simple to do that. Take what you made last year and divide it by 2,040 hours. That's how many work hours there are in the week, and you'll find out what you're worth, right? And if you're doing something that you can pay somebody less than what you're worth to do, pay them because you just got an hour back of your time, and that's probably what I would say to somebody. Stop wasting time. Spend the money if that's what it takes, or mentor with somebody. Be with somebody that's doing what you're doing because that will accelerate your progress, exponentially.
That's huge. That's huge advice right there. And that was one of the things that we had to shift in terms of our mindset as well is, you don't think about things in terms of cost, you think about things in terms of value. And if that value comes at the exchange of freeing up more time in your life, spend it. Spend it because more often than not, you can always make more money, but you can never get back your time.
100%. I just talked to a woman today. She's going to put a funnel together for me, and I said I don't care what it costs, and I knew what it was going to cost. But the point is, I've been trying to do it for years. I've read all of Russell Brunson's books. I haven't done it yet. She just said I'll do it for you. I'm like, okay, do it. It's I've been wasting time. It's crazy. It's ridiculous.
It's powerful stuff. All right. The fifth and final question here, Carl, is what is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
Yeah. You can reach out to me. I have a link tree. I don't know if you're familiar with Linktree. It's a way to get in touch with people. It's Linktree / yourfocusguy.com. You can find me under yourfocusguy.com on LinkedIn or all the social media. If they want to text me, I'd be more than happy to send them. I'd be more than happy to send them an e-copy of the book, no charge at all, because the more people that have it, the better. They can reach me at carl@yourfocusguy.com. And just if you mention your name, Kris, I'd be more than happy to share some of the exercises that we talked about in this particular episode here.
And as someone who just finished this book a few weeks ago, I encourage every single person here to reach out to Carl for that book because it could potentially be the next step towards taking action towards your goals. So make sure you reach out to Carl. Go ahead and send him an email. Cite our name or cite this Freedom Investing podcast, and make sure you get that book if you're encountering resistance in your own personal life. So, Carl, tons of great information today. I really liked how you talked about the different ways people can overcome fears and challenges in their own personal lives. I love how you talked about how you took a big step when it came to real estate investing and how the Napoleon Hill Foundation played a huge part in that, as well as helping people understand the value of their time. I just want to thank you again for being a fantastic guest on our show, and I look forward to remaining in touch.
Thanks, Kris. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
Now, if you like this show and want to learn more about how we can help you free up your time through passive real estate investments, check out www.freedominvesting.com. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Kris Toribio. Until next time.